Good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous Shabbat, a Sabbath that we will worship our King and be close and draw into his chambers and let him heal us of all of our physical, emotional, and spiritual wounds. This is our time to rest, not just physically, but rest spiritually in our King, in our Creator, to return to the seventh day and to walk in the blessing that was spoken over it, to immerse ourselves in the holiness that was infused into it in Genesis 2 1 through 3. We get this privilege every week. It is such a joy to be able to distance ourselves from the struggles of the heart, the mind, and the flesh. Also the news and the weather and all the other things that you see pounding your head with messages of darkness, and to be able to step into the heavenly courts and be with our King and be restored, renewed, refreshed by him. This is the third week of the Torah cycle. This is a beautiful parsha. It's called Lecha. And this is a phrase that we'll hopefully be able to discuss some of the implications of. It's a call that goes forth to all of the people of the covenant, to all the people of the King every year. Actually comes in multiple times, in multiple ways, but this is the substance of all God-man relationships. Lech, Lecha. If you wish to know how you're to relate to our God and his words, and his persona and his plan, it is all going to be wrapped up in this mystical package called Lech Lecha. These are instructions spoken by the creator of the universe, and we'll get a chance to explore what that might mean. Thank you for coming, all those who are physically here. I know some of you sacrificed distance and time as well as physical desire to stay in the bed to do that. There are many things hanging over our heads in America and other parts of the world that may be tuning in as far as physical or emotional things. Some people call this day by a name I will not use. This is October the 31st. I won't use that term. I feel no use. I feel no need to. That's not what this day is. This day is a day to worship our King. This is the day of the Holy One. This is his Sabbath. Hallelujah and glory unto his name forever and ever. Well, that being the case, let's sort of explore this parsha. It begins with Genesis 12, verse 1, and it continues all the way through chapter 17 and verse 27. So we've got a long series of stories here, and what we're getting is a upgrade from the Holy One. We have been discussing Parsha Bereshit, the beginnings, the shaking, and the beginnings that flow out of that shaking, the foundations on which the earth is set. We began to Parsha Noach, and we began to see the transitions that the world has gone through, and now we're in the season of learning what is going to happen now. What is life on earth all about? What is our mission in regard to that life, and who are we to associate with and attach ourselves to, and who are we to separate ourselves from, and who are we to diverge in behavior and attitude and thought from? These are the questions that are before us. We ended last week's Parsha with an introduction to a man named Avram. I hope the sound of the word, the name. Abram is what his name is usually called by Westerners who don't understand the way of pronunciation in Hebrew. Abram, but it's Avram. And Avram is this powerful spiritual buzzing sound that should be awakened in your spirit. This is somebody you need to know. This is some release upon the earth that you need to be connected with. This is the rock out of which you were hewn, so to speak. Many years ago, there was a public, I think it was a mini-series, a book written by Alex Haley, and then a mini-series that was put on television and was very popular. It was called Roots. And Alex Haley in this context began to search out. He was the author of the book and sort of the screenwriter, or at least the advisor to the screenwriter for the miniseries. And he was a man of African American descent, and he had this hunger to go back and find his roots. He wanted to go back to find his progenitor, the last furthest person back he could find that represented his bloodline, or that at least introduced his bloodline into the world. And so the whole book, the whole novel, the whole miniseries that he gave captured most of our minds and hearts in this world. And as he began to go back through Chicken George and all the way back to Kunta Kinte, and if you remember those names from that story, that's his story, and that was the story that Alex told, and it began to awaken. Something happened in America, I think in the world at that time, and this whole craving for genealogy. If you know any genealogists in your family, you have any people who are just hungry to find out where you came from and what your roots were. The whole genealogical movement arose largely out of Alex Haley. Part of he was responding to it in part. But part of it was that he actually began to stir people to pursue that. Well, we're going to find our Kunta Kinte. He's deeper. He's further back than Kunta Kinte. He's further back than any of the progenitors of any of the races that you may know. Avram is that man. Avram is the rock from which we are hewn. Avram is the spiritual guide that was placed upon the earth to be a pattern for us, and to therefore that we are supposed to be connected with him. We will be connected with him. I mean, it's fascinating, the stories that Yeshua told about Avram. And as he was later called Avraham, as he began to receive this week's Parsha, we'll not only be introduced to him fully as Avram, but we will be introduced to why he was later called Avraham and is now called Avraham. Yeshua will talk a lot about him. And one of the things he will provide to us is that he will say this. He will say to the Pharisees, he said, do you not remember that it is written that the Holy One appeared, and he doesn't say the whole story, appeared to Moshe at Mount Sinai, or at Mount Horeb, in the burning bush. And that's the part he didn't specifically say, but they knew. And he said, I am the God. It would have been spoken to them in Hebrew, but nevertheless, we see it in English. I am the God of Abraham, of Yitzhak, and of Yaakov. Did he not say that? And then he shocked them by saying this: God is not the God of the dead, but he is the God of the living. Now we have this shock. Avraham is alive. Avraham is alive. And therefore he is not dead and buried like the progenitors of other races. He is alive, and his life force is still active and operative on the earth, as is that of Yitzhak, and as of that is Yaakov. That is why we continue to exist as a people, no matter how many people, no matter how many nations, no matter how many dictators, no how many despots desire to wipe us out, no matter how many false religions rise to try to wipe it out, no matter how many socio-ideological movements arise to try to blot out the significance of it, there is a source, a live source. And so he began to tell other stories about Avram. He says, he tells the story of Lazarus, the poor man, the beggar, Lazarus. And in the story of Lazarus, Yeshua begins to say things that shock a modern American thought and Christian thought and heck, Jewish thought for that matter. It just doesn't fit. What he says is to you that he tells a story, the parable of Lazarus. He says Lazarus and he died and he went to where? Where did he go? And who did he see? And who was he with? He went to the bosom of our father Avram. And Abraham began to speak to him, and he began to say things to him, and Lazarus would speak to him, and he says, go back to my family, go back to my brothers. They don't understand, they don't get it. And Abraham says, no, if they will not listen to Moshe and the Torah and the prophets, they won't listen if someone came back from the dead. All this is about the issue of the life force of Avram. Is it alive in your life? Have you found your progenitor? in the Spirit? Have you begun to connect back to him? And that's the question, and it begins with Lecha. Genesis 12, verse 1. I'm going to ask you to stand with me, if you would. In honor of our King and in honor of his beautiful words, these words that we begin to speak will actually come from the very mouth. After the first phrase, will come out of the very mind and mouth of our Creator. And so, Holy One, open our eyes that we may see the wondrous things of your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth. Do not hide your instructions for living from us. Our soul cries out for your judgments at all times. Amen. And now the Holy One had said to Avram, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will become a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and those who curse you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Now, in the Hebrew text, whenever we see the words "get out from your country," get out, that is as a translation, as best the King James translators could figure it out, of how to say this Hebrew phrase, how to convey the meaning of this Hebrew phrase, Lecha. Now, if you get more into a Hebraic mindset, if you kind of go back and you try to get more into the Hebraic language, you're going to understand that the Lech and then the Lecha, see how they sound together. They're connected. They're an expansion from the Lech to the Lecha. And so the issue is the Lech, to go, to explode, to burst out, to break forth, to Lech, to make movement away from and unto. Lecha. What is Lecha? And this is where the English King James doesn't really pick this up. You go out Lecha. You go out, you break forth Lecha, to yourself, to you. You break forth to you. You break forth to the you that has always been waiting to be discovered. You break forth to the you that was created and designed. The break forth to the you that's been caught up in some form of prison, bondage house, some form of deception, some form of lies, cultural biases, of limitations. You go out from the one that is bound up to go to the one who is no longer bound up by those different limiting factors. Go to become who you are. Go to become who you were designed to be. Go to your destiny. Go to your mission. Go to your identity. This is sort of this Lech Lecha. That's why I said Lech Lecha is a part of every facet of our God-man relationship. He is always calling us to Lech Lecha. No matter where we are, no matter how far we've come in our journey, no matter how much we have learned, no matter how much we have overcome, he is always saying, oh, we're not through yet. Lech Lecha. Come out. You're still not all of who I created you to be. You're all not of who you can be. You are not reached your full potential. It is not about what you believe. It is about you becoming what I created you to become. So Lech Lecha. That is our first message. And so the question becomes to us is, okay, what is it that is our limiting factor? What is limiting us? What is holding us back? What is it that we are not walking in that has been assigned to us, that has been prepared for us, that has been designed for us? What is it that is keeping us bound in the chicken house as opposed to flying with the eagles and with the angels and with the cherubim? What is it that keeps us from being the people of the creator of the universe, the sons of the living God, the children of Abraham. Well, it's interesting because the way he puts it is this. He says, Lecha, go out for yourself, go out unto yourself. Me'artsecha. Me'artsecha is the Hebrew. From the first limiting factor that we have, the first thing we have to go out from is the land in which you live, the place, the geographical coordinates, the nation, the whole process of who you think you are nationally and culturally, ethnically. Who you think you are in some facet that is based upon your geographical region, that is based upon your nationality, your ethnicity, your gender. Go out from the limitations of all these factors because there's more for you, and it's deeper, and it's better, but you have to break free. Lecha, break free of the limitations of these factors. Now, I told you the story of Alex Haley. Now, every culture has its own story. The Greeks, if you're a fan of the Greek literature, the Iliad and the Odyssey, we have this tales of great Ulysses, and we have Homer, and we have Hector and Ulysses, and all these different heroes. And so we build a whole culture around men who we identify with. In the British culture, you could go back to all the different things. You could go back even to more lately to guys like Churchill or Cromwell. The British. Every culture though has its own set of its heroes. We have in Africa. It could be the Mandela. It could be every culture has its own legends, its own story. In America, which is under attack right now, but we have this history of people we've attached to for years. We've attached to men like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and down the road of all the James Madison and the different leaders that founded our country, and we had legends develop, and George Washington chopped down the tree or whatever, all through the silver dollar across the Potomac River. We had these legends of culture, and we have this. Out of the legends of culture came the American dream. Or it could be the British dream, or it could be the African dream, or it could be whatever your dream may be. But he says, Lech Lecha, come out. Come forth. Break out of the limitations of whatever your cultural dream is, of the geographical region from which you come. Lech Lecha, go out for yourself. Me'artsecha, from your land or geographical region. Mimoladeteka, from your native culture, from your nationality. I mean, if you primarily identify yourself as an American, as a black man, as a white man, as a black woman, as a white woman, as a Hispanic woman, if you identify yourself by your culture or by your ethnicity, what he's telling you is, you are locking yourself in a box. You are preventing yourself by your own mindset. You are putting prison bars around yourself. You are not that. You are the son of Abraham. And you are the son of the living God. And you come forth from this great story to tell the great story of God. And your ethnicity is merely a box that you're in, or a label that you wear, but it is not who you are. Your culture is the same way, away from your native culture, your people. Umibet Avika, come out from Umibet Avika, your father's house. Oh, my soul, we're never going to get personal. Because if this is where people would limit themselves to Kuta Kinte, or to the last relative they can find, the last part, the top rung of your genealogy tree. You would limit yourself there. Some people, why do you study genealogy? I think a lot of people study genealogy just out of curiosity. Others study genealogy largely because they're hoping they're going to find they're related to royalty. I'm a descendant of the. What difference it makes? It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't change anything about you, or that I'm. You're more likely to find you're related to a horse thief. Okay, so here's and that doesn't matter either. That doesn't matter either. King, queen, horse thief, it doesn't matter. The issue is go beyond whatever that may be. You're probably related to all of the above in some regard. We all go back. You may go back to Nimrod for that matter, but here's the process. The key is to key back into to Abraham. And we'll later get to Sarah and Rivka, and we'll get to Yitzhak and Yaakov. Go out from your father's house. Now we have a calling. We're going to know about the calling, which is to honor our father and our mother. That is not going to be suspended. But to bring honor to our father and mother means we must transcend wherever they came from and whatever they have done. It must mean that we get farther along in the spiritual realm than our father did, than our mother did. That is, to truly honor them is to take what they gave us and build upon it, as if it were a foundation, not a box that limits us. That is, so this issue of going out from your father's house is not to dishonor your father. It is to honor him in the most glorious way, to become all that he wanted you to be, all that he could possibly have envisioned you to be, even if he didn't really want you to be that, because he had his own flesh limitations and his own boundaries. If he could have wanted the best for you, if he was capable of doing that, you need to go beyond where he ever got to. And that process is what he's calling us, Lecha, go out from your father's house. Because, you see, there's another house we need to go to. A house that's much bigger than our father's house. A house that has much more impact, much more relevance to the world than our father's house. The house of the Father's house. We are in part of we're given a representational, ambassadorial function that goes to every nook and cranny of the earth, physically, geographically, and goes to every culture, and goes to every family and household of the earth, and we'll see how that works in a later part of this release. So he says, go out from your father's house. Have you gone out from your father's house? Have you exceeded your father's level of spirituality? Have you blown it out of the water? Are you ready to let Abraham be a model, a representational model to do that, to break free of those bonds? Now, your culture's calling you back, saying, no, be like us. Come back and play in the pigsty and the chicken yard like we do. And they're trying to make you mad at other cultures and other ethnicities and other fathers' houses, because now you see why the cultures of the world are bondage houses. All the cultures of the world and all the ethnicity factors of the world are bondage houses. We are designed to be breaking free of that process. So it says, break free of your land, your geographical region. Break free of your native culture. Break free of your father's house. Al aretz, or el aretz, haaretz, asher areka, to a land that I will show you. So the things we come out of, we've listed those things we come out of, that we break forth from, that we exceed, that we surpass, that we transcend. These are the things we're called out of, and we are also called to something. And he calls it, the Holy One introduces this concept of what we're called to by this phrase, El haaretz asher areka, to a land I will show you. Oh, this is going to be a good journey. This is going to be the epic. You think the Iliad and the Odyssey, and you think the stories of Daniel Boone and and the Lewis and Clark expeditions. You think this was an adventure? You think the great sea voyages of the conquistadors or the explorers was a great adventure? No, this is the great adventure of life. To go to a land not where we will be able to see with our eyes and think with our minds and limit with our own perspectives. We will be able to see through the very imagery of God, the very visions of God for what he has designed to create upon the earth. Go to a land I will show you, that I will make visible to you. And we know that Abraham did that. We hear the book of Hebrews. He kept going. He was looking for something. And so the writer of Hebrews describes it as a city. A city. I mean, there's lots of cities. I mean, we live in a small city here in Texarkana, USA. I mean, there's cities near us. Dallas is not far from this place. Houston's not all that far. We could go to Little Rock. We could go throughout the world. We could find beautiful cities. We could find London. We could find Bonn. We could find we could find Amsterdam, Paris, Madrid. All these different cities. We could go to Johannesburg. We could go to Nairobi. We could go to the different cities. We could go to Gaza. We could go to Tel Aviv. We could go to so many different cities in the world. We go to Rome. We could go to we could go to Babel. We could go to all the different cities that the world has. He says, but none of the cities that you can see upon the world are the city to which we're actually called. We are called to another city, to another place. He says a city that has foundations. What are the foundations? What are the foundations? The foundations, well, if you looked at what are the foundations of the throne, I'll refer you to Psalm 89 on that, or Psalm 98 on that. The foundations of the throne of the Holy One. A city that has foundations, whose builder and whose maker is God, not any man, not any culture, not any movement, not any denomination, not any religion. It is not based upon any of the things that human beings are attracted to or attach themselves to. The vision and what we are called is only the vision that God has for you and for mankind upon the earth. Are you ready to go to that? Are you ready to make your journey, to make your trip, to make this your epic life purpose? I call this the divine romance. The whole story of the Holy One's encounters with Abraham, and then later with Yitzhak and Yaakov, and with the sons of Yaakov, then all the way through Moshe and through Aaron and down through the Bnei Israel, the Israelite people, all through down to the conversations that Yeshua had to call the centurion. You remember what he said to the centurion in Matthew 8? Yeshua said this, very fascinating. Centurion was Roman, okay? And he comes to Yeshua, and he begins to talk to him and ask him to heal his servant. Okay, so we know the story, right, from Matthew 8. And he says, you don't even have to come to my house. I know. I'm a man under authority. I understand how this works. You just give the directive. You just give the directive of the vision that you have for my servant. And I know it will be done because I'm a man under authority. I understand that. And Yeshua smiled. I mean, big, broad, I picture him, big, broad smile. You get it, don't you? You get it. And you're a Gentile, and you're a Roman. You're a soldier occupying this nation, but you get it. You get the vision of the creator of the universe, and you understand that I'm a part of that. And so he says something very fascinating. He says, I say to you that many will come from the east and the west, like you, Roman centurion. Many will come from the east and the west, and they will sit down with Abraham, with Yitzhak, with Yaakov, in the kingdom of heaven. Not in heaven, in the kingdom of heaven. Now, this is an amazing process, amazing statement that he's just made. Now, we have just taken this beyond a matter of genealogy in the physical sense, of who your lineal descendant was, or ascendant was, to an issue that goes far beyond that, and now is a matter of having the same vision, the same perspective, the place that the Holy One will take you to and show you that Abraham had. Whoa, so he saw a city that has foundations. They're heavenly foundations that have the beauty of the master's work, the brushstrokes of the master upon them, the Elohim signature upon them, and whose builder and maker is God, who issues the decrees, who declares what it does not appear to be as if it was, and causes it to become as it is. Now, this is the beauty of the journey we're on. The Lecha calling is always to say, you think you know something now? You think you've seen something before? You think you understand the stuff by virtue of using your intellect and using your mind and using your logic, using what you think of as reason? No, I'm going to take you to realms and layers and levels that are far beyond that. This is the beauty of the Abrahamic call. Everything else about the Scripture, everything else about the Scripture is going to be tied to this Abrahamic call. So we need to know Abraham. And Yeshua keeps referring to Abraham over and over again. Then Paul begins to refer to Abraham over and over again. In the messages, Stephen refers to Abraham over and over again. The writer of Hebrews refers to Abraham. If we do not have a connection to Abraham, we will build a house on somebody else's land. We'll build a house out of earthly materials that is a squatter's hut on this earth. Our whole religion will be a squatter's hut that is not based upon the foundations. In Matthew chapter 1, when the Gospels begin, to try to, again, reemphasize how important the Abrahamic call is. Matthew 1. Matthew 1:1, the beginning of the Gospels, beginning of the story that is so caught up into our connection with Yeshua and Messiah. Here's what it says. Verses 1 and verse 2. As it describes itself, this is the book of the lineage, the genealogy, the lineage, the backstory of Yeshua HaMashiach. This is the story of the backstory of Yeshua HaMashiach, the son of David, the son of Avram. Avram, it begins this way, and that's just the description of what the story is about. And then the story begins, Avram begat Yitzhak. It doesn't tell you Avram begat Ishmael. We're going to get to that in another part of the story. That's another aspect of the problem. Avram begat Yitzhak, then Yitzhak begat Yaakov, Yaakov begat Yehuda and his brothers, and so on and so forth. The gospel begins with Abraham. People ask me, well, how do you describe the gospel? Start with Abraham. If you start with Abraham and start with the Abrahamic call out and the Abrahamic call to, and now we'll begin to see. Well, there's a other part of the Abrahamic call we'll get to. I did want to read one more or two more of these, quote, New Testament passages. Conversation with Zacchaeus. Remember the little man, the wee little man, up in the sycamore tree? And Yeshua's coming through Jericho. And as he's going the road, and Zacchaeus climbs up in the tree because he's a short man, but he's a tax collector. He's a Hebrew. He's a physical lineal descendant of Avram, but he's lost his vision. He's got caught up in a modern Israeli viewpoint of who he is. He has locked himself into that identity, that national identity. He is caught up in that prison. And then he's also overlapped with the Roman aspect of things. Boy, he's in deep confusion, right? That's what, when we think we're Israelis and we think we're Americans, and we forget who we really are. All right, well, this process. So here is Zacchaeus in this message, and Yeshua looks up at him and says, I'm going to come to your house. And he does. He goes to his house for dinner. And Zacchaeus, of course, is just overwhelmed by I hope you can see this story. I hope this comes alive in your heart as you begin to. This is not some nice little story. This is a real event that changed a lineage, a line, a bloodline. Shifted a whole atmosphere, shifted a whole city. And so Zacchaeus, he's there, and he knows he doesn't deserve to have Yeshua sitting in his house and eating his food. And so he begins to pour forth out of worship, almost out of glorious gushing out of his heart. He says, I'm going to take all the things that I've stolen from people, and I'm going to return it. I'm going to make restitution for it. I'm going to follow the Torah. I'm going to do what the Torah says, and I'm going to give back 4 times, 5 times, whatever it is. I'm going to take all this. I'm going to give it all back, and I'm going to give gifts instead of that. And Yeshua just smiles and eats his pita bread, and he says, this day salvation, it says in English, but he didn't say that. This day, Yeshua. This day, Yeshua has come to this house because he is a son of Avram. He is a son of Avram. He was a lineal descendant before, but now he's a son. Well, he said to the Pharisees, he said, if you were the sons of Avram, you claim to be sons of Avram. If you were the sons of Abraham, you would do the works of Abraham. Now, you can be a lineal descendant of Abraham, but the question is, do you do what Abraham did? If you were the sons of Abraham, you would do what Abraham did. You will behave like Abraham behaved. You will live like Abraham lived. This is the key, the secret. This is why it is so important to get beyond your physical lineage or your genealogy, to get into the aspect of, are you connected to this life, or are you now living out of his life force? Are you now doing the things he did? Now, it's very interesting because Paul will step into this and he will talk about justification. As we read it in English, he talks about justification. This is not about justification. He says that Yeshua says that if you're a son of Abraham, you will do the works of Abraham. Now, if you're talking, that's not because of justification issues. That's not for your eternal place in heaven. That is because that is who you are called to be. That is what you are called to do. That is your mission upon the earth. That is your function and your reason to be alive, be given the breath of life, is so that you will do the works of Abraham. But he says, now, if you're thinking that somehow doing the works of Abraham or doing the works of Torah or doing the works of what you think of as the law is somehow going to get you justification, we're on a totally different wavelength there. You're thinking about the wrong thing. You're thinking selfishly. I want to go to heaven. That's a selfish thought. He says, I'll deal with that. You let me deal with that issue. That's what Avram did. Avram let me deal with that issue. You do what I put you on earth to do. The secret things belong to God, Moshe said. But that which is revealed, the Torah, that is for us to do. That is the job. So here we are with all these different ways in which the writers of the days, that they actually understood these things. Those who were actually close to Yeshua understood that Abraham, the Abrahamic lifestyle, the Lecha way, is the critical facet of what we do. If you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. Now, we have a little bit more to this call, the initial call. We go out from certain things. We break forth. We break loose. We break free of certain things we're called to, at least. How are you doing on that? Because that's kind of a step one before we get to step two. How are you doing on the breaking free? I mean, I see a lot of social media, and I don't see much breaking free. I see repeating phrases. I see regurgitation of terms and vocabulary that's being spun to you by media people that are one side or the other. I see a lot of name dropping. And I'm not trying to condemn you. I'm just trying to awaken you. How are you really doing with this breaking free of all this cultural, social, ethnic garbage that men are throwing at you? Religious garbage that they're throwing. Whatever the terms analogy you wish to use, how are you doing on breaking free and getting back in contact with the actual creator, not a system of religion? How are we doing? Because that's going to be pretty important. Because if we can get this to the extent and the level that we begin to break free of all those cultural limitations, he's got something for us that he wants us to do. And that's the last part I read. He's in beginning of verse 2. If you do, as you do this, what will happen to you? I will bless you. I will bless you. I will barak you. I will release you from limitations and restrictions. I will empower you. I will give you something to carry into the world. That's what a blessing is a baracha in Hebrew. It is to give you something to carry. It is to give you a level of authority, a level of weight, to make you an ambassador, to make you empowered, to make you inspired, to give you a purpose, And that is what the blessing does. I will give you a blessing. I will bless you. He will do this to us. If, as, when, and to the extent we get out and break free, as to the extent we go to the place he tells us to go. He says, I will make you a great nation. I will make you a great people, goy in Hebrew. I will make you a goy gadol. I will make you you will not be limited to being an American. You will not be limited to being an African American. You will not be limited to being a Hispanic American or a Hispanic in general. You will not be limited to being a female or a male. You will not be limited to be a Greek or a Roman. You will not be limited to any of those things. You will have a new national calling. It's not just physical Israel. It's a new national calling that is the kingdom of God, the people of the living God. B'nai Yisrael in the sense of the spiritual realm. He said, I will make of you a new nation. I will bless you, and I will make your Shem great. I will make you, in English it says, make your name great. These are the foundational promises. These are the foundational promises on which the Abrahamic lifestyle is built. But it comes forth after the go out, get out, break free. Now, these foundational promises, I will make you a great nation, I will bless you, and then it says this other process that I'll make you great, I'll make your name great, your Shem. Now, again, we have to realize that this is spoken by the creator of the universe in his native language, which is Hebrew. Don't argue with me there. Don't fight with me there. You find another language he spoke in. Now, this is what he said, yehi or. He didn't say let there be light. He didn't say it in Spanish. He didn't say it in Greek. He didn't say it in Aramaic. He said it in Hebrew. Now, the reason I say that is because Hebrew has a special power to it, a special divine energy to it, and it takes the one with a special divine resonator, a receiver, to be able to move with it. So he said, I will make your Shem great. What is a great Shem? Great name. It's not that you're on the news. It's not that you get your name in a history book. It's not that you become respected when your name is mentioned. People tremble or people laugh. Or it's not that. A Shem in Hebrew is all the aspects of your persona. I will make your persona permeate the earth. I will make the attributes and the characteristics that I infuse into you go forth into all the areas of the world, and it will begin to be more powerful, it will affect and impact in a positive way every facet of the spheres of influence that you touch. I tremble. I love to enjoy Parsha Lecha because it is sort of a foundational source. And it awakens in you more than just your intellect. If your intellect is all that's ever awakened by the Torah, you're not going to be able to see why Yeshua kept talking about it. So he said, okay, I want to make of you your name. I want to make you permeate your attributes, your character, your persona, permeate the earth. And you will become a blessing. This, if you want to identify yourself as your self-image, because part of the issue of coming out is coming out of your self-image. Come out for yourself, out of who you think you are. So who are you? Now, it sounds a little silly, but quietly, silently to yourself, consider speaking these words. To yourself, I am a blessing. That's what I am. Not because I'm so special, not because I'm so great, not because I do all the right things, not because I have all the right knowledge, not because I follow all the right rules, not because I'm part of the right organizations, not because I'm part of the same right social movement. I am a blessing because God has ordained for me to be a blessing. I may not be walking in it every moment of my life. I may not be doing it the way I need to be doing it, but I'm on a journey, and I'm learning where I'm becoming more and more and more and more of a blessing everywhere I go. That's why I don't keep saying the same old stupid stuff I used to say. I don't keep reacting to things in the same old silly, selfish, fleshly way I used to respond to it. I don't get angry near as easy. I don't get offended. I don't get outraged near like I used to. Though there are same temptations and the same irritations, the same aggravations out there, I don't do it because my whole identity is this. I am here to be a blessing. I am here for one purpose, It's not to tell people what's right and wrong. It's not to argue what's fair and unfair, or moral or immoral. I'm here to be a blessing. That is my soul core identity. Now, if you know that's who you are here for, if that's, you know, why that's your purpose to be here, that the Holy One has committed to work with you, to make you into that blessing, and you, if you're willing to yield to that, if you're willing to respond to that call, and that shaping, this divine shaping, the rabbinical training that he's trying to do to teach you how to become a blessing in your life. Oh, we're going to have a good time. We're going to have quite a journey. This is going to be the epic of all the odysseys of life, is for you and me to become a blessing to the earth. Every word becoming a blessing. Every facial expression. Every time we enter a room becoming a blessing. Every time we interact with another human being, or even with a tree or a plant. With a sunrise, with a sunset. You know, this is one of the fascinating processes of life. We do things a little different, you know, in the Hebrew realm. And it was taught to us by Avraham and his servant and different people. One of the things that we do, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Amen. Blessed are you, Holy One, our God, great King of the universe, who gives us fruit of the vine. Now that's a blessing. You see, I will make you a blessing. I will make the whole nature of your being here about blessing. Now that is called Kiddush in the tradition. That's called Kiddush. We're now setting apart. You see, we could see the sparkling of the grape in the glass. We could remember the last time we got a little bit tipsy, or a little bit, you know, a little out of got released from some of our social deficiencies, and begin to be more we can remember all that stuff and saying this is about that. And he says, no, this is never about that. So we say whenever we eat bread, you know, we Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. And some people call it blessing the bread. We didn't bless the bread at all. We did not bless the bread. We bless the Holy One. Blessed are you, Holy One, our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. And we say that's really a fallacy. He didn't bring forth bread from the earth. He didn't plant the grain. He didn't water it. He didn't harvest it. Oh yeah, we're co-laboring with him. It is all. If he didn't do it, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And so this whole issue of learning how to be a blessing in everything we do. David said it this way: this is the same phrase, I will bless the Lord at all times. In all circumstances. No matter what confronts me, I will approach life by blessing the Holy One. Paul really talks about giving thanks. In all things give thanks. The whole issue is here, we approach all of life in every circumstance as we become in this journey, on this long odyssey, becoming like Abraham, living by the life force of Abraham. We learn to treat everything as a blessing and to release a blessing into every situation. We could complain about, hey, look, I've picked up for Shabbat, for Erev Shabbat, I've picked up old wine. Some of you don't drink it, or bad grape juice. And when you taste it, you say, don't think I'll have any more of that. Give me the sink to where I can pour it out as quick as I possibly can. It isn't an issue of how much you enjoy the wine. It's the issue of how much you enjoy the blessing. That's why we make Kiddush. Everything in life is about the enjoyment of the blessing and the bringing of the joy. And it isn't about how good it tastes or how good it feels. This is why we learn how to approach even the problem times of life, even the stresses and the wounds and the scars that will we receive from the Holy One's hand good but not evil? Will we not? Will we somehow quit blessing the Holy One if it's not perfect, if it's not the way we want it, if it doesn't fit our idea of what should happen or what we deserve or what we would like? This is the idea of Abrahamic blessing, where you will become a blessing. We will become blessers. Am I a good blesser? This is the next question I would ask you to ask yourself quietly under your breath. Am I a blesser? Am I a blessing? Am I a blesser? Am I bringing the joy of heaven and the thanksgiving of God into every situation, no matter whether it seems good to me or evil or pleasant or unpleasant or moral or immoral? Am I bringing about blessing? I say, I will make you a blessing. You will become a blessing. And then he says in verse 3, I will bless those who bless you. Now this is shocking if you think about what kind of a responsibility this places upon you. I've mentioned this in other situations, and I got kind of chastised because it sort of said, well, you're taking the responsibility off other people. No, there's the issue. If other people are going to be either blessed or cursed based on how they respond to you, do you understand what I just said? If you're the measuring line as far as how other people individually or as families or as cultures or as ethnicities, if you are the dividing line as to whether they're going to be blessed or cursed, do you get the impact of that? Does that hit you yet? How they respond to you will determine whether they get blessed or whether they get cursed by the Holy One. Do you know what responsibility you carry? Do you understand, therefore, that you must not, under any circumstances, give them a reason or encourage or inspire them to curse you? Now, you say, well, it's their choice. Don't make a hard choice. Don't help them make a hard choice. If they wish to curse you, if they determine to curse you, they determine to be negative towards you, to hate you, to be jealous of you, if they determine to do that to you, that is ultimately their choice. But don't make the hating of you or the criticism of you or the rejection of you normal because you have been so obnoxious in the way you appeared, or arrogant in the way you've approached them, or rude. You know, I saw a funny meme this week, and it was a lady, happened to be African American, and she's looking at somebody else, and she was saying, "You is rude. You is not anointed. You is not anointed. You is rude." Now, this is the issue. Are we going to learn that we have a responsibility to so behave with regard to every person that we meet and every situation that we face, that we at least give them a chance to do what is necessary to get the blessing of God, which is to bless us, to be caught in favor, think favorably of us. This is why live peaceably. Paul said, to the extent it is possible for you, to the extent it lies within your power, live peaceably with all men. Let your love be without hypocrisy. All the things that he's talked about in different passages. Most of Shaul was trying to tell you, learn how not to aggravate people. Learn not how to push them into the realm of cursing you, because that is not a realm you want them to be into. Because the other process is that which you sow, you will reap. It's going to come right back on your head. So he says, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. I have been fascinated by evangelical, Christian Zionists who have taken this word to Avram and to his progeny as if it were to the nation of Israel. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't ever have any application, but that's not the way in which it was given. In other words, what they're saying is, be careful, Islamic nations, because you're cursing Israel as a country, as a nation, as a government, as some sort of a social entity or a governmental entity, and therefore you're going to be cursed. Your nation is going to be cursed. That's not the way. This is on an individual by individual basis. And this is on a personal level. This is the Abrahamic call is to become the dividing line, the measuring rod, and carry the responsibility of being that measuring rod into the world for every single interaction you have with another human being. Whew. This is a lot bigger than nations getting blessed or nations getting cursed because they say bad things or do bad things to Israel. Now, it says, we haven't even touched the level of the Abrahamic promises yet, because the next one is what blows me away, and I become a blubbering idiot when I think about it. I mean, this is the other issue of the Christian Zionist cry that I don't get, because they left out the most important part. They always leave out the most important part. They're always worried about who gets blessed, who gets cursed. No, the issue is at the end. The issue comes at the end. The fullness of this whole promise comes at the end. And what he says at the end is, and in you. Hey, put your name in there. Abraham, son of Abraham. Put your name in there. And in you, all the families of the earth, no matter what nation they live in, no matter what geographical region they live in, no matter what their ethnicity, no matter what their cultural background, no matter what their behavior patterns are, no matter what their lies they live under, no matter all in you, this is your purpose, this is your mission, that you would become a blessing to every family on the face of the earth. I tell you, I just go into a blubbering idiot, blubbering fool, to think that that is what he sees in you and what he sees in me. This is why I think a lot of theologians have said, we can't handle that. We're going to make this all about Yeshua, and this is going to give birth to Yeshua, therefore we don't have any more responsibility with that. That's too crazy. And so they theologically come up with a way to opt out by saying, no, he's just talking about Yeshua's going to be born from your loins. That's not the works of Avram. The works of Avram are to become a blessing into every family in the face of the earth. All right, so we have this amazing Lecha call to go out, to break free, to break forth, to find out who you were designed and created to be. And then we have the promises of God on which this is going to be founded. The various different things he said to do. Each one of these is an element. Each one of these is a unique aspect of what he calls us to do. And this is how we're going to change the world. This is what his plan is to bring about the world. That's why he's going to scatter the sons of Abraham throughout the world. That's why some of them are going to be from other nations, other cultures, other ethnicities. The centurion of Rome, so many different others all the way through. The Samaritan woman. And we're going to find all these different people are brought in, as well as a whole lot, a myriad of believing Hebrews are going to be brought in. This is going to be what's happening. And throughout the world, there will be a scattering to take place, sowing like seed. And every time he sows seed, he reaps a harvest. Wherever the seed is sown, out of that land, out of that group, out of that ethnicity, out of that realm comes a harvest. He will have that harvest. Okay, so we're going to get into a little bit more. He says that Abraham departed as the Holy One had spoken to him. Are we getting free? Are we doing that? Because the works of Abraham start with us departing as the Holy One said. Breaking free of our self-image. Breaking free of our culture. Breaking free of the limitations of our ethnicity or the aspirations of our ethnicity. Breaking free of our national dream, national vision, national hopes. Are we doing the works of Abraham yet? Are we doing the works of Abraham? He said, and Abraham departed as the Holy One had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. This other guy went with him. Lot, his nephew, went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abraham took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. And so they came to the land of Canaan. We have this first contact in Scripture. This opening up of this passageway into a land that will fascinate us, a geographical part of the earth that will draw us as if there was a magnet in it and there was steel in our heart. We should be constantly drawn to Jerusalem, to Israel. The mention of the names, the mention of the places should begin to stir in us something that Paris doesn't stir. I used to, of course, at this stage, we've seen what happens in Paris, and it isn't pretty. This past week we saw what happened in Paris, and it wasn't pretty. So Paris has lost a lot of its flow. But back when I was growing up, everyone dreamed of going to Paris. They had this vision, this dream of what Paris was. Oh, we got a place, we're called to a place much more powerful, much more wonderful, much more stunning than Paris. Much more stunning than any vacation resort you could possibly be thinking about. It's like my wife used to ask me, where do you want to go on vacation? When we used to go on vacation. Where do you want to go on vacation? And she would look at me and say, oh, you want to go to Israel? I was thinking more Spain, or California or someplace. No, I only have one place I want to go. I mean, I love other nations. I love other places. I love the people of other places. But I only go there as seed. That's not where I go to find my enjoyment. That's not where I go to find my delight. There's only one place, the joy of men's desiring, the Israel, Jerusalem, the center point of the earth. And Abraham is introduced to it. Part of the call, part of the works of Abraham that Yeshua mentioned, that referenced, that we would do the works of Abraham, is to have our hearts captured by the vision of this land, of this beautiful place, this I call it the beachhead of the kingdom of heaven's landing. It's the landing zone of the kingdom of heaven upon the earth, a place where heaven touches earth in ways that doesn't happen in New York City or Dallas or Houston or Texarkana on a normal basis. This is a place where you have encounters. If you've ever walked those streets, I know some of you have, and walk, as someone said. Walk uphill and walk down. If you've ever walked those hills, if you've ever seen the faces, the supernatural is expected in Jerusalem. You expect to have encounters with people that will change your life. You expect to change other people's lives because heaven touches earth in that city, in that whole region, in a different way than he touches elsewhere. So to have this longing for Jerusalem, do you long for Jerusalem? Do you long for Israel? Do you hunger for it? I'm not talking about just in some sort of romantic, ideological way. I'm talking about, do you feel that's home? That's the only place on earth you'll ever really feel is your home. That's Abraham's perspective. He takes him there. And really at this stage, this is the first thing. He says, go there. He goes to, and Abraham passed through the land, verse 6, to the place of Shechem. And he went to the terebinth tree, or the oak tree, or of Moreh. And it says something very fascinating, and the the Canaanites, you'll read in your English Bibles, were in the land. Just the land itself is groaning under oppression. The land is always to some level groaning under oppression. In this situation, as Abraham is introduced to the land, maybe he had these idealistic dreams that would be this paradise. It would be somehow this perfect place where everything was wonderful, some dreamland, some utopia. But he goes there, and what does he find? The Canaani, those the cursed ones of God. Who is cursed? Remember Noah? Noah has cursed this Canaan, cursed be Canaan. So the people of the biggest boondoggle of human history of this age, of this era, since the flood, have all come to live there. And they're in control. And they ain't turning loose. They're squatters. They don't belong there. They don't own it. But they have taken it over. And it's just like if the worst gang or cartel in our area were to come into your house, in your neighborhood, and set up shop. That's what he found. The worst of all the humanity was there. And now the issue is, can we begin to still be a blessing to every family on the household of the earth, on the face of the earth, even whenever they are wicked and perverse and dangerous? Can we still be this? So Abraham wasn't really ready for this. You wouldn't have been either. We aren't. The first time you see really bad people doing really bad stuff, you tell me how you react. I've seen it on Facebook. I see it all the time on Twitter. I see it in your conversations, in your facial expressions, when you get all twisted and contorted in your face because bad stuff's going on in places it shouldn't go on. Right here in River City, right here in America, right here in Israel. And so here's, what is Avram? He's just got called. He just got called to this, go out for yourselves. And look what he sees. This ain't going to be pretty. This ain't going to be easy. This is hard. Seems impossible to the natural realm. This makes my flesh crawl. This makes my spirit tremble with fear of those mean people that are doing those mean things. Canaani were in the land. But the Holy One appears to Avram, verse 7, and says to him, this is the second time he's spoken in this portion. The Creator of the universe speaks. To your seed I will give this land. You do remember that Avram is 75 years old. And of all the people that were said to have gone out from Haran with Abraham, there was one group missing. Seed. He had no son. He had no daughter. He had no children. He had no offspring. And here's the Holy One saying to you, I will give this land to your seed. To your seed, I will give this land. And Avram, you think you hear that? Oh, yeah. Well, Avram said, wait. Have you seen Sarah lately? She's real pretty. She's still beautiful. But you know what they say about Sarah? Lo Yaleda. She can't conceive. She doesn't conceive. She doesn't have seed. She doesn't have a place for seed. She doesn't carry seed. She doesn't, her uterus never attaches. There's nothing ever happens. She's barren. Akara. She's Akara. So it's like, this is a strange way to say this to your descendant, to your seed. Avram, I will give this land. How could that happen? How could this possibly happen that he's going to, this beautiful place is covered with horrible people doing horrible things, polluting it every day, bloodshed, the cry of innocent blood, all coming out all the time in this place, oppression, violence, Hamas, all these different things are happening in this land. You're going to give it to somebody who doesn't even exist yet. Who's the seed? Hi. So I've cut myself. Anyway, then the Holy One appeared to him and says, to your descendants I will give this land. And there he built an altar to the Holy One who had appeared to him. Now he didn't tell Avram to build an altar. There will be an altar later. One altar that we're told to build. One altar. In Jerusalem. Before that, in the desert, at Mount Sinai. And we're not supposed to build a bunch of altars. We're not supposed to have a bunch of altars. So, but Avram decides, I think I'll quit bleeding in a minute. Thank you. But we're supposed to respond to the Holy One. And so Avram goes to Israel. He goes to the land that he sees vision that he dreamed of, and it is not perfect, and it needs to have a lot of work done that he's incapable of doing. And now he gets this promise that this is the land. Yeah, I know. You see the Canaani out there. You see all the bad stuff going on. You see how they've oppressed it and depressed it, and how they've made it barren and fruitful, just like your wife Sarah. You've seen all that, but this is the land I'm going to give to your seed. Catch that, Abraham. You got something in you didn't know you had. You got something in you. Sarah's got something in her that you don't understand that I'm going to bring forth and bring life into. So he says it. He says he built an altar to the. What does Abraham do? What do you do? God says something like that to you, and you don't know how in the world you're going to deal with it. What do you do? Well, Abraham's response was to build an altar to the Holy One. And he built an altar to who had appeared to him. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And he built an altar. And he builds an altar. He can't stop himself. He almost can't restrain himself. Everywhere he goes, he can't talk sense to these Canaanites. He can't have conversations that they'll understand. He knows he's got a problem. If he doesn't give them a reason to bless him, the curse is just going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. So he's got to be careful how he interacts with these people, because he carries the measuring line responsibility. He can't make it worse. They're under enough of a curse already. The people in your life that you have difficulty dealing with, they're under enough of a curse already. They really are. They don't need you to add to their curse. Quit adding to their curse. He needs you to be a blessing. So Abraham says, I can't talk to them. They don't get my words. It'll just make them madder and madder and madder. They'll just get more confused, more angry. So what will I do? I'll leave an altar in their midst, and I'll try to leave a sweet, pleasing, fragrant aroma behind when I leave. Just a few stones piled together, just something to make them wonder. And then the sweet smell of the olah, of the burning, of the presentation, a barbecue, as you may sense. I'm going to leave a sweet smell, and let's say, who was here? Who was that masked man anyway? Some of you aren't old enough to, or too old. Anyway, who was that? What happened? Who was that person that was in our midst? Why do we feel suddenly at peace? Why do our demons suddenly quiet? Well, Abraham didn't go and he didn't preach to them. He didn't declare to them all these different things. He knew he was the measuring line. You can't go and do this just because you want to. You have this urge to tell people what's right and what's wrong. You need to go in and leave a sweet, pleasing, fragrant aroma. You need to be a blessing, however you can do it. And he did it by leaving behind these altars. He knew he was going. He knew it wasn't his time yet. It was to his seed that this land would be given, wherever that was going to come from. And so Abraham journeyed. Verse 9, Abraham journeyed going on toward the south, and there was a famine in the land. You know, when you are in a world overrun by the Canaanite mindset and the Canaanite ways, the pagan ways, the ways of hate, the ways of violence, the ways, you see it on the streets of Philadelphia. I mean, in the streets of Washington, D.C., and when you see a land that is ruled by that kind of anger and that kind of hostility and that kind of violence, you're going to have a famine in the land. It is going to produce a famine, because the land, the physical land and its agriculture, its plant life, its trees, its shrubs, its gardens, they respond to what human beings are doing. So if you're making war in your area, whether it be verbal war or whether it be spiritual war, or if you're making war, if that's what you're there for, is to make war, you're going to cause a famine in the land. Well, the Canaanites were doing this. They were causing a famine in the land. The land is the most productive piece of real estate in the earth. But if you put enough violence into it, if you treat it with enough cruelty and oppression and selfishness, then you can turn even the most fertile, fruitful piece of ground in the earth into a dry desert. Well, it doesn't take much imagination to see what happened over the course of the centuries after the Crusades and how that before 1948, what that land looked like. It was always under that same curse from the time of the Crusades on until now. And it's beginning to break forth, just beginning to break forth into fruitfulness again. Because the sons of Abraham, not genealogically, not lineally, the sons of Abraham that do the works of Abraham are there, are coming. And then we have this whole story about Egypt. We're going to run out of time. I see my clock. My wife's trying to give me a high five, I think. So let's carry forward the calling upon your life, the works of Avram that you're called to do, the table of Avram that you're called to, and the blessing of Avram you're called to release upon the earth. These are the things that should be really powerfully pulsing in your heart and your mind. You were made to be a blessing. You were made to bless every family on the face of the earth. So we go into how do you do that on a practical basis? How do you actually overcome your flesh instincts of revulsion and offense and irritation and a sense of self-righteousness? How do you overcome all that and begin to do and have the impact of Avram? Do the things of Avram and have the impact of Avram. How do you do this? Well, the Holy One didn't leave him alone to his own devices. He meets with him again in Genesis chapter 15. And in Genesis chapter 15, verse 1, he says, after these things, the word, the Devar of Elohim, came to Avram in a vision, saying, do not be afraid. Lo tira, lo tira, lo tira. And I would say to your spirits right now, don't be afraid. The word of the Holy One, don't be intimidated. Don't be sensing you're overwhelmed. Don't let that, because if you're trying to do this in your own ability or your own intellect or your own finances or your own ways in the general, you're not going to make it happen anyway. So realize you have behind you, working with you, the greatest power upon the face of the earth. And he is designing this to take place, so don't be afraid. Don't let fear get to you. If you begin to feel intimidated, if you begin to feel nervous, if you begin to feel anxious, if you begin to feel worried, if you begin to feel in any way terrorized by what's going on in the world or what you see around the world, stop that. You say, it's not that easy. Yes, it is. If the Holy One tells you to stop it, it's that easy. Because we are responders. We are calling to respond to God. He says, don't fear. It means don't fear. I don't have time to talk about that. Lo tira. Lo tira, anoki magen lach. I am your shield. I am your protection. You know, I think one of the things that we misinterpret about the idea of the armor of God. I will take up the shield of faith. You're missing the point. It's not some idea of your faith. What you are is taking up, what is the shield of faith? It is letting him be your shield. It is letting the Holy One himself be your shield. It's not your belief system. It's not the strength of your theology or thinking. It is letting him become your shield and knowing and trusting him to be your shield. Anyway. So he says, I am your shield. I'm Anochi Magen Lach. For you I am a shield. I will be your shield. I will be around you. I will watch over you, protect you. I will defend you. I will be your shield. And your exceedingly great reward. It boggles the mind. I try to tell people all the time, we are here to be servants. But the happiest servants the world has ever known, the most blessed and honored and joyful and thankful and grateful servants. You say, servanthood doesn't sound good to me. You haven't tried it this way. You haven't tried serving the creator of the universe and then serving other people through the eyes of the creator of the universe. If you do that, you don't want to rule over them. You don't want to direct them. You don't want to command them. You don't want to manipulate them. You don't want to control their behavior. You want to bless them and you want to serve them, and you'll find more joy than you could possibly imagine. I'm on a line right now, an issue of, and I don't, I'm looking around, I'm good. Youth, no youth in the room, no children in the room. You guys are going to be past youth, I'm sorry. You understand these processes. The issue is, what are followers of the Holy One supposed to do with sex? Okay. How are we supposed to relate to sex? I said, first of all, take that word out of your vocabulary. It's not a Hebrew thought. It's not a spiritual, it's not a scriptural thought. It's that you immediately get a context that comes with that. And you get a vision in your head of the final version of what that looks like. So now we're talking about a dance in Proverbs 30. I'm really going to go somewhere in this last 2 minutes. Promise you. Then Proverbs 30, verses 18 and 19, he says, there are three things for that they're too wonderful for me, I don't understand. There's the way an eagle flies. How fascinating. The different things, and the way of a man with a woman, the way of a man with a maid. Now, that should begin to tell you immediately that we are in a realm way beyond anything the English language or the Western mindset could possibly talk about. We're talking about mysteries so beautiful and so deep and so inspiring that you will never again think of sex the way you think of it now. That if you begin to ever lapse back into that vocabulary and that mindset where it's all about pleasure, it's all about thrill, it's all about excitement, it's all about some level of command or control or victory or conquest or any of the things you think that might be, physical release, whatever it may be to you, wash it out of your head. No, it's a beautiful, beautiful mystery of God, and it's only found in one way: when you serve. When you are here to serve God for his purposes, and man, and your spouse, who is the other party of this process. And that is your purpose in doing this, and that's the only reason. Now, what am I saying? Because most people think of sex as the source of pleasure for either giving or getting. Neither one of those is going to be your spiritual way of approaching this process, or anything else in life. Same thing with regard to eating food. Same thing with regard to drinking any substance. The same thing with regard to anything, taking a vacation. Everything is about service, not about your enjoyment or your pleasure. Because you see, Scripture tells you where pleasure is found. Scripture tells you and defines pleasure for you. Does it not? Do you know what pleasure is? It is not what the world tells you, what your flesh instincts tell you, what your appetite, what your bodily urges tell you pleasure is. That's only a mirage. And it's never there when you get there. A few seconds, you think you're there, and then it's not there. Where's pleasure? At your right hand. O Holy One, at your right hand are pleasures forevermore. In your presence is fullness of joy. Source material, Psalm 16, but there's many other sources you can get with this. This is what your pleasure is now. So if you understand that everything that you do in life is going to be service, but in your service, you are going to find the ultimate pleasure. It will change the way in which you approach every situation and every interaction, even to the most intimate of the levels of your marital relationship will change. Because it isn't about you getting what you want or the other party getting what they want. It is about serving the Creator of the universe. And doing so in a way that we connect with Him and we begin to release the blessings and release the goodness and release the pleasures of God upon the earth. Well, that's the sort of the finale. Abraham will go on. There'll be another encounter, Genesis 17. So we have these encounters, Genesis 12, Genesis 13 will have an encounter. Genesis 15 will have an encounter. Genesis 17 will have an encounter. And the Holy One will keep training Abraham up. He's going to take him on this long journey. It's like a discipleship program. It's like a apprenticeship program. The Holy One's taking us, and he does the same for all of us. We're all on the same Abrahamic journey. Always somewhere in the journey learning to be taken from where we are now with all of our limitations and our mindsets and our approaches and our ethnicities and all of our cultural viewpoints and all that stuff. We're going to take it from where we are to the place where the fullness of who we are designed to be, the impact we're designed to have upon the world, is released. Well, thank you for joining us. It is time for me to say goodbye to all those across the world who've tuned in. I pray you will be blessed. I pray that you will be safe. I pray that you will learn the Abrahamic lifestyle, that you begin to do the works of Abraham. Amen. See you next time.